Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. This is my fourth time trying to film this video, and if it doesn't work out this time, I'm gonna have a meltdown. Fueling myself with my matcha that has lion's mane in it to try to help me think a bit better. I have never experienced anything like this before where I feel like my brain literally doesn't work. Those of you that have also gone through antidepressant withdrawals feel my pain. The brain fog is horrific. Fourth time's a charm. Where was I? Oh, these are my absolute favorite makeup products in every single category, part 2. Why'd I do that? Okay, so if you missed part 1, I'll have that listed below, and in that video I covered my favorite primers, skin tint / foundations, concealer, powder, eyeshadow, mascara, and brow products. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing my favorite bronzers, blushes, highlighters, lip liners, lip stains, lip oils, lip glosses, and lip balms. Am I missing anything? I think that's about it. And I feel like I didn't explain this when I filmed part 1. The reason why I want to film these makeup favorite videos once a year is because I like to have them as a video to point people to when they are asking me questions about my favorite makeup products. I can obviously, well, not obviously, if I have to, I can narrow down to just one favorite product in every single category. But the reality is, number one, I love beauty, I love makeup, I love to collect makeup, and I really love to have different kinds, different variations of similar products depending on what I'm in the mood for and what my skin looks like. For example, if I have a day when I'm wearing a really, let's say like luminous sunscreen and I have a very radiant skin tint on top, then I probably don't want to use really radiant bronzers and blushes on top of that because that could start to look like too much. But on the flip side, maybe I'm using a complexion product that's not making my skin look as glowy as I want it to. So then I am going to want to reach for those kinds of products that add that glow on top. There's a rhyme and reason for everything, kind of. I, of course, like makeup, reasons why I need things, because I just love makeup so much. But anyway, say all of that to let you know that for all of these products that I have in one specific makeup category, they have different purposes, and I will let you know what those are. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna start off with my favorite bronzers, and just like in part 1, I do also want to share my favorite brushes for applying each product category, so that means we're gonna talk about my favorite bronzer brushes really quick. For the purpose of laying down product, I have 3 different brushes that I like to use. The first is specifically for cream bronzer, and actually all of these are from IT Cosmetics. I just love IT Cosmetics brushes. I feel like the quality is so good, and the way that the bristles are dispersed in each of these brushes allows for the most beautiful application. Anyway, my favorite for cream bronzer is the All Over Heavenly Luxe Complexion Perfection brush. This is not only amazing at laying down product, but also blending at the same time. Oh my god, suddenly my hands are drier than the Sahara Desert. Okay. For powder bronzer, I like to use number 1, the Airbrush Essential Bronzer Brush, and number 2, oh yeah, I rubbed the name of this off. This is not technically a bronzer brush, it's an all-over powder brush. I of course will have everything listed and linked below, but I think that this is amazing for bronzer application because of the larger size and the slight but not too intense taper. So this gives me a little bit more of a natural application. I think that this works really well with bronzers that have a bit more of a radiant finish, and this packs in product a bit more, but I'm still able to blend really well with this. So this works perfectly for any kind of bronzer that I don't need to worry about it being like too saturated, which I'll explain in a second. And last, these are not products that I apply bronzer with, but they are products that I use to blend all over once bronzer and blush are laid down. I had these in my collection for years. I mean, maybe like as far back as right after college. But over the last couple years, I feel like I've just been getting so overwhelmed by the amount of product that I have in my collection, and I've just been trying to get rid of everything, streamline, give away things that I feel like I don't need. So throughout that process, I gave away both of these brushes, and since then, I have regretted it. So I just recently repurchased the IT Cosmetics Airbrush Mega Powder Brush. She's mega, all right. And the Airbrush All Over Powder brush. So again, not really using these for the purpose that they are meant for. You can definitely also just use them to lay down setting powder, but I just think there's something about using a brush that's large like this with the way that the bristles are dispersed that really helps to mesh makeup together more seamlessly. So yeah, I'm gonna share my number 1 favorite cream bronzer, but I do wanna say that with both cream bronzer and blush, those are categories that I want to explore a bit more. So I'm thinking I may need to do some sort of showdown video so I can really dedicate time and brain power to figuring out which are the absolute best in those kinds of categories. And I've definitely tried a lot of really good ones, but I just can't stop reaching for these nude sticks, bronzing sticks, and blush sticks, and I want to like do a showdown to force myself to really compare, because I feel like those videos help me to see things in products that I maybe wouldn't otherwise. Let me know if you want to see a video like that, but until then, the Nude Sticks Nudies Matte Bronzing Sticks continue to be my absolute favorite. I cannot stop reaching for these. I feel like there's several things that they do perfectly with this product, which is actually also the exact same formula as the blush, which we'll get to in a second. But all of those things are why I think that this wins for me out of the cream bronzers and blushes that I have tried so far. So I'll show you guys what it looks like really quick in the actual component. It is a very creamy, balmy product at first touch. Like when you first feel that, it's like, I don't know, this is gonna get slippy, it's not gonna wear well. But this somehow starts to blend out almost a little bit powdery, and not in a dry sense where you're gonna end up with like a crusty, powdery finish, but just in a way where that really emollient, balmy texture kind of tones down a little bit to give you a more natural finish that locks in place. I have a really hard time getting products that are super creamy and emollient to work well for me. I feel like they apply and blend beautifully, but then they just do not last. These, on the other hand, last all day long for me, and I absolutely love them because I can apply them both under and over powder, and they look gorgeous either way. That's definitely not easy to find, so again, that's why these are number one. So I have two different shades, one for when I have no self-tan on, Bondi Bell right here, and one for when I do have self-tan, Bondi Bay. I also think another reason why I gravitate towards these over the, let's say, Rare Beauty bronzing sticks, which I have talked about loving before, and I still do, don't get me wrong. It's just that I love these a little more, and I think one of the reasons why is that the shades are just so good. Nude Sticks understands shades like not a lot of other brands do. I just feel like everything is actually like in a flattering skin tone and not just cute to look at. Okay. That was so aggressive. That's it for cream bronzer. Let's move on to powder bronzer. I do have two different kinds of powder bronzers that I enjoy using. The first is a more like natural or matte powder bronzer, and the second is one that has a more glowy radiant finish. And I am struggling with the first category because if you've been watching my videos for the past several months, you will know that I have been loving the Haus Labs Power Sculpt Velvet Bronzer. The shade Light Level 1 is just absolutely perfect for my natural skin tone. It's not too cool and ashy, but it's not too orange. It's like somewhere right in the middle where it just adds the perfect amount of warmth to my skin. It has a really unique, soft, like slightly gel cream-like texture for it being a powder. It blends really beautifully on the skin, and it has a really nice, just skin-like quality to it that doesn't make it look so powdery and bronzery, you know? But when I went to go find a summer shade that would work better for my self-tanned skin, I realized that Sephora was slowly starting to get rid of this. And upon further investigation, very respectable, reputable investigation over on Reddit, I realized that they're doing the exact same thing that they did with their blushes when they relaunched those, where slowly shades start going out of stock and then that shade just disappears and it's not being replenished on Sephora's website. So I am guessing that they are going to be relaunching this, and I don't know what that means for the formula. I'm not sure if they'll reformulate it. I'm not sure if they'll change the shades. So until then, I feel like I have to pause on recommending this until we see what happens with it. So in place of that, I would highly recommend the Fenty Beauty Bronzer. This one is not exactly the same in feel or finish, but it's something I've really been loving. It's called their Sunstalker Bronzer, and I specifically picked up the shade Into Sun 01 because Kelly Gooch was saying that this is amazing for fair skin, and boy was she right. It just has the perfect depth of color and undertone to add both dimension and warmth to my skin. This one is a bit drier to the touch. It doesn't have that slight gel-like feel, and it also looks a little bit more matte on the skin, but I think in a really nice way. It's like a soft matte, and I find it to be really beautiful mixed with complexion products that are extra glowy, like I was saying in the intro. So if I'm wearing the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter with something else and then maybe an extra glowy sunscreen, and my skin is just like already as glowy as I want it to be, putting a soft matte bronzer on top of that just makes for such a beautiful combination. But when I went to go swatch shades of this at Sephora to find a self-tan shade, nothing looked quite right. The deeper shades, well, not like deep categorically, but deeper than this for me. Just had really strange undertones, and maybe it's something where I just need to try it on my skin and it'll end up looking good, but swatched out, I was like, ooh. So another option for a bronzer like this would be the L'Oreal Infallible bronzer. I recommended that in my favorite drugstore products video, which I will list below. I talked about my #1 favorite drugstore product in every single category. And the L'Oreal bronzer definitely wins for me, but I have the same kind of issue where I can't find a color that works both for my fair skin and my self-tan skin. And I really just want to find that. Like, I hate having to mix and match depending on that. It's driving me crazy. When I want to use a bronzer that's a bit glowier, there are two that I reach for, but I will say I think one that's going to just be replaced by the other. And that is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Bronzer, which for a while was my only radiant bronzer like this. I have the shade Luminous Bronze Light, and it really is a beautiful product. Hourglass powders are just so good. But this is one that I've noticed I do have to be a little bit more careful with, because if I pack on a bit too much accidentally, especially like on my forehead, the highlightery pigment in it kind of starts to like centralize, and it will look like I just have highlight all over my forehead, which is obviously not what I'm going for. With a softer, lighter application, it's absolutely beautiful, but if that's something that's not really up your alley, you don't want to have to worry about that, then skip. What I think I will be replacing that Hourglass bronzer with eventually, when I run out of it, are the new RMS Beauty Redimension Hydra bronzers. So if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I am obsessed with their blush version of this, and we're gonna get to that when we talk about blush. They launched a bronzer version, I think end of winter, early spring, not that it matters. And they did send me a couple different shades in PR. This one is Tan Lines, and this one is Beach Walk Betty. They actually look identical in the pan, so I'm gonna swatch them out for you guys so you can see. Tan Lines is definitely a better fit for my natural skin tone. It's just more of like a neutral brown. Beach Walk Betty is a little bit more reddish in undertone. And in looking at their website, I think the shade Malibu Muse might be a better shade for me with self-tan, because it's a bit just like warmer in undertone versus that kind of rosy-ish look. Interesting though, because they say that Tan Lines is for medium skin tones, Malibu Muse is for light to medium skin tones, and Beach Walk Betty is for fair skin tones. What was that noise? Regardless of the shade you go for, this is just such a beautiful product. It's one that looks very scary in the pan, like just intensely highlightery, and it will look that way if you don't apply it properly. Like when you just swatch this, it looks like a bronze colored highlight. But when applied with an actual bronzer brush, and especially one that gives you, where'd it go? A bit more of a diffused look like you would get with something like this. It is so beautiful. You just get the most gorgeous sun-kissed glow on the skin, and it's one that I feel is a little bit more subtle than Hourglass. And I actually have it on right now, but I mixed it with the Fenty bronzer. That has been something I've really been loving. I'll mix a radiant bronzer with more of a matte one to just get like the perfect combination of the two. So those are my favorite bronzers for now. I feel like this category is one that I'm always working on and just never quite content with. If there are any natural matte bronzers that you think I would really enjoy, please let me know, and I will definitely try them out and get back to you guys if there are any that I really love. All right, let's move on to blush. There are two blush brushes that I really love. The first is randomly from Huda Beauty. I was sent their Cheek Color Blush a few years ago now in PR, and it is perfect. It's like a stippling brush that also blends really well. And I feel like I've tried several cream blush brushes and nothing applies like this. It just gives me such a nice application. But for powder blush, there is nothing like my IT Cosmetics 227 Flawless Blush Brush. The way that this is packed, distributed, angled, say no more. Repeat everything I just said about the Nude Sticks bronzers and apply them to the blushes. Okay, got it, nice. While there are other cream blushes that I've tried and really loved, these are the ones I can't stop reaching for. They just work the best, give me the best results, and come in the most gorgeous skin tone friendly shades. And skin tone friendly sounds kind of dumb, but I say that because there have been so many cream and liquid blush launches over the past few years that look so cute and beautiful in the tube, but are not actually colors that are gonna look amazing on our skin. There's a difference. Oh, also, goodbye. I recognize that I have 700 million of these. I swear every time I'm about to sit down and film a video talking about how much I love these, I just so happened to get a PR package from Nude Sticks with even more shades. So now I have a ton of different shades that I can swatch for you guys. And I don't think I've mentioned that these blushes actually come in a matte finish and a dewy finish. So the matte is just Nudie's Matte. The dewy finish is Nudie's Bloom. So just FYI as you're looking through shades. The three beigey shades that I have are Bareback, Nude Buff, and Sunkissed. The pinks that I have are Cherry Blossom Babe, Naughty and Spice, Sunkissed Pink, and Juicy Melons. And the reddish orangey pops of color are Poppy Girl, Hot Fire, and Picante. And I know that Picante is the one that Sophia Richie wore for her wedding, but I don't know that I will keep this. It's one of the ones I was just sent in PR. Like, obviously it can be sheared out to look beautiful if she wore it on her wedding day, but it's just so yellow in undertone. I can't imagine that that would be flattering on me. We'll see. But the rest I'm obsessed with. When it comes to powder blush, sometimes I really just need a nice soft matte finish, and if that is the case, I will almost always reach for my Pat McGrath blushes. I love that these have enough pigment to be built up if I want to, but they also are not too intensely saturated to where they just look crazy. I feel like blush has gotten crazy these days. Sometimes there is such thing as too much pigment, you know? So I love that the Pat McGrath blushes are buildable and easy to work with, and there's something about the way that this powder melts into my skin that I think looks so flattering. That's definitely not always easy to find with a powder blush. Sometimes there are powder blushes that just look too powdery. These, they're like perfectly thin enough to where they melt in, and of course don't look natural like it's blush, but there's just something more skin-like about it than other blushes I've tried. So from the top to bottom, we have Nymphette, which actually, as you can see, is the one that I have that has some reflective pigment in it, but it is significantly less than the Blushlighters I'm about to share in a second. Next is Cherish, second to last is Divine Rose, and on the bottom we have Flirtatious. These kinds of shades could not look more unassuming in the pan. They just look so boring. Like, how could that possibly look cute on my cheeks? But if you have fair skin, you have to try a shade like this. It is so flattering. How many times am I gonna say flattering in this entire video? Moving on to glowier blushes. I have several of these because they all have different kinds of glow. I told you, there's a rhyme and a reason for everything. And the first type of glow is something that I would call more of a diffused glow, and that is what I get with the Hourglass Ambient Lighting blushes. I have the shades Mood Exposure, which is such a beautiful, slightly cool toned pinky nude, and Sublime Flush, which looks kind of crazy in the pan because it's like bright pink and orange, but right here, you can see, swatches out to be the most beautiful flirty pink. So again, I feel like I get more of a soft diffused glow with these. I do feel that it's significantly less than I get with the bronzer. I wish the bronzer was the exact same as this. And I know that they're technically both the ambient lighting powders, but you can even see here when I swatch that bronzer, like, there's more reflection in there than there is the blush. And the blushes are just gorgeous. If I do want more of that true blush lightery look where I'm getting, I wouldn't say like a full-on highlighted cheek, but more of like a mesh between a highlight and a blush, then I will go for my RMS blushes. These, again, are the blush version of what I talked about for bronzer. They are the Redimension Hydra Powder blushes. If you had showed me these blushes a few years ago, I would have been like, no. Because they look so intense in the pan, but my goodness, do they apply beautifully with a blush brush. So from the top to bottom, we have Crystal Slipper, Maiden's Blush, French Rosé, Cur Royale, Pomegranate Fizz, which is probably my least favorite right now. I feel like it's just a tough shade for my skin, but gorgeous nonetheless. And another that again is kind of tough for my skin, but just so beautiful, Hanky Panky. This is something I just like want to load up on my cheeks, but obviously that looks terrible. So I try to use like the tiniest bit, and then I'm like, it's not what I want. So obviously these top four shades are my favorite. They're just the most wearable for me, the most complementary to my skin tone, and I also love mixing them together to create new shades as well. The Haus Labs Bio Radiant Gel Powder Highlighter in the shade Rose Quartz is also something that I love to use for an extra glowy blush, like a Blushlighter. And for those of you wanting to see a side-by-side of Haus Labs Rose Quartz with RMS French Rosé, here you go. Definitely similar, but not identical. I think that Haus Labs is a better option for those that have really fair skin because it's obviously a lighter pink. So there are some finger swatches. Haus Labs, which I feel like you can really tell there, just has some more punch in the highlight department in French Rosé. And then I'll just swatch them on my hands too. Haus Labs French Rosé. Haus Labs is perfect when it's the depths of the winter and I just want something that's like a little frosty and girly and feminine and cute. Whatever that all meant, it's the best for that. And last but not least is my most recent blush obsession. I discovered this off of Amazon randomly. It was like one of those things that popped up as I might be interested in. And then after I tried it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna need every single one. These are the Pew Juicy Pang blushes, or jelly blushers, excuse me, to be specific. And these blushes differ from my other blushes in that the glow that I get from them is more of like a skincare glow, where it looks like I have really amazing juicy serums on and I'm getting the glow from that versus any sort of highlightery effect. And it has such a unique texture. It's kind of like that putty thing where it feels really soft to the touch. You can kind of press it in, but when you just rub your finger over top, you can tell it is like the softest, smoothest thing ever. So from top to bottom, we have RD01, PK01, which is my personal favorite, BE02, which is honestly probably actually tied with the last one, and I love mixing it with the last one too, VL01, and BE01. So those are all my favorite blushes right now, subject to change, because I feel like I just keep discovering new kinds of blushes that I'm obsessed with. But for now, I love all of those so much, and some of them you guys have heard me talk about for a long, long time, so a lot of that is not a surprise. Let's move on to my favorite highlighters. My favorite highlight brushes are also from IT Cosmetics. The first is their Airbrush Radiance Fan Brush. I really enjoy this if I want just more of a precise application. If I'm using a highlight that is a bit more intense, then I like to just kind of like, what's the word? Focus it, centralize it on one specific area versus having it kind of spread all over a wider area on my cheek, like I would if I were using the Airbrush. I feel like not a single part of that sentence made any sense. The Airbrush Flawless Highlight Brush, which I think is better just for like something that's all over but a bit softer, because otherwise it would look insane. There's really only one cream highlighter that I use, and it's also from RMS Beauty. As you can tell, I love their products. I feel like they are quite the underrated brand, if I do say so myself. Why? So these are their luminizers, and I will show you up close. In the pot, they are quite creamy and balmy. And when you swatch it on your finger, it's like, I don't know about that. But this is the most perfect formula ever because it's incredibly sheer. So keep in mind, like any sort of finger swatch like that is gonna concentrate the pigment, make it look more intense. Even just rubbing this on the back of your hand, you can see how that like magic comes to life. It just looks like you have the most insanely juicy, hydrated skin ever. And that is exactly what I look for in highlighters these days. It's obviously fun sometimes to like have a little bit of an extra pop, but even still, I don't want it to be the kind of pop where you can just like see the line of powder. I want it to be something that is on the more sheer side, whether it's a cream or a powder, so that it has more of that glassy effect when it melts into my skin. So the shades that I have are Living Luminizer. This is the best for super fair skin. Magic Luminizer, which works for fair to light skin. And obviously it goes without saying that that's just in my own humble opinion, so do whatever you want. Champagne Luminizer, which I think is really pretty for light to medium skin. And Peach Luminizer, which is beautiful for deeper skin tones, or put on top of your eye, kind of like an eye gloss. These are just so good. For powder highlight, if I want something that isn't quite as glassy and is softer and more diffused, then I will always reach for the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. I think that this is absolutely beautiful, especially for fair skin tones. It just has that like candlelit glow versus that beaming highlight look, and this has that quality that I was talking about of just melting into my skin really nicely. But if I want something that pops a little bit more than that and isn't so soft and diffused, then I will reach for the Dior Backstage Glow Face Palette. I actually just repurchased this because the one that I had was just like getting really crusty and gunky and very expired. But I feel like that goes to show just how much I truly love this, because I don't often repurchase powder highlights. Aside from Essence Pure Nude, I feel like once I use something, I'm like, I can try something else next. But not this one, my friends, not this one. This is so gorgeous, and it has that like sheer glassy effect that just makes this melt into my skin unlike any other powder highlight I have. And as you can see, this can be intense if you want it to. That is not how I am using it, but in case you're curious to just see what these colors look like swatched out, there you go. But I feel like you can tell as I start to blend these that they sheer out so that it's not just like this powdery powder. powder. I just can't stand that anymore. I don't like how it looks. See what I mean? I also use this basically every single time that I do my makeup for my eyes. So I will put a little bit under my brow, a little bit on my inner corner. Chef's kiss. Okay, we're gonna wrap up the video with my favorite lip products and start off with lip liner. So I actually have 3 different lip liners that I'm going to recommend, and then within, where'd it go? Oh, right in front of my face. Within each of those formulas, I actually have 2 different shades to swatch and show you. The reason why I purchased a lip liner initially is always because of the shade. For whatever reason, lip products always pull very warm on me and end up looking orangey in undertone. I have to buy cooler toned lip liners if I don't want them to pull super warm on me. So first up, we have the Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat Lip Liner. And originally, I did not feel like this lip liner was worth the money, but that is because really the only shade that kind of worked for me at the time was Pillow Talk, and that was pulling too orange. So I was like, I'm not gonna spend the money on this if it's not the perfect shade, but now I have found a couple shades that I really love. Let me scoot up close so I can show you guys. The first is Pillow Talk Fair, which they recently came out with, thank God, because it's much more flattering on those of us with fair skin because it's a cooler toned pink. Stop focusing on my face, focus on the liner. And the other shade is also a relatively newer launch from them. It is called Icon Baby, so right here, and it's more of like a beigey nude. If you're not familiar with the formula of the Charlotte Tilbury lip liners, they definitely are a little bit drier than some in the sense that they're not like super soft and slick and creamy, but that is to their benefit because once these dry down, they last so long. Next is the Sephora Rouge Gel Lip Liner, and I'm missing one of my favorite shades, or did I get rid of it? 29 Dress to the 90s. That's one that I did love. Maybe I decluttered it just because I liked these better. Why can I not remember? Anyway, these 2 are beautiful. So right here we have the Nudist, and then next to it, which like I was talking about just looks very purple, is Sink or Suede. So the Sephora Rouge Gel liners are super creamy, really nice and comfortable to apply, but they do have a little bit of like a glossier finish, definitely compared to Charlotte Tilbury, which is a bit more matte and blurred. So if you're not into that, obviously don't go for them, but I love the shade, so it does not bother me to the point of not wanting to wear them, especially because I'm always wearing gloss anyway. And last is something that I almost didn't include in this video because it just launched, and I never like to include recent launches in videos like this, but this is the type of product where I'm like, I'm not going to change my mind on this. It's not like a foundation or a concealer or really any complexion product where you need to try it for a while with other kinds of products to see how it meshes. It's a lip liner. This is what it is, and it's freaking amazing. It is the new Maybelline Lifter Liner. So I reviewed these in my last New at the Drugstore video, and I told you guys there, like, what in the heck? These are just unbelievable. They're super pigmented, creamy, comfortable, and they stick. Like you can feel the tack once they dry down, which means that they do not budge. The shades that I have are Line Leader and Big Lift, and I feel like this is a really nice variety of shades for me to have, but I do hope that Maybelline comes out with even lighter shades of this liner in the future, because I feel like I would buy every light shade that they have. Let's talk about lip stains. I am obsessed with lip stains right now, as many of you know, because I just uploaded a lip stain showdown where I tested out 33 different lip stains. I tried to find all of the viral ones, all the ones that had the best reviews. I did full day wear tests with them. I showed you what they looked like after eating a meal. I showed you application, how they blot out. I showed you with the gloss on top. I really tried to cover every angle possible for that video. And what I realized in capturing the footage for it is that a lot of the lip stains that I thought were super long lasting. Yes, definitely last longer than lipstick, but don't actually last all day long. So I stopped caring about that as much because I realized how few truly did last all day with nice even pigment, because again, they all last longer than just a lipstick or just a lip gloss would completely by themselves. But the look I can get with a lip stain is unlike any other lip product, especially if it's the right kind of stain. Because some are not good, but my favorite ones have a way of looking glowy on the lips, and that sounds like, what? How could a lip product do that? I'm telling you, magic. So obviously, since I just did that showdown, I'm not gonna rehash all of those things. Instead, I'm just gonna share the 2 that I have been reaching for the most as of late. First is what I'm wearing right now. It's the 3CE Style Nada Water Blur Tint. I'm obsessed with this, number 1, because of the shade. I think it's so pretty. And number 2, because it has this like blurred yet slightly glowy effect. Oh, I love it. And then I obviously put a bit of a clear gloss on top, and the combination, oh my god, I love it so much, as you can tell. But there is nothing quite like the Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy tints. These, they have this super comfortable gel cream texture that I don't need to wear a balm with, it's that comfortable. They have light to medium pigment with a shiny finish and the most beautiful glowy effect on my lips. And I'll show you guys the shades that I have now. This is number 3, number 10, number 13, and number 5. Oh, I die. And I will just call the last category my favorite glossy lip products because yes, some are actually called lip glosses, others are called balms or oils, but to me it doesn't matter what they're called because I look for the exact same kinds of things in all of them. And that is a thick, cushy, extra glossy gloss. So first is the Lawless Forget the Filler Lip Plumping Line Smoothing Gloss. I have 2 shades that I am obsessed with. The first is Velvet, which is a cool toned nude, and the second is Juicy Watermelon, which is a gorgeous sheer pink. And these are definitely a little bit sticky, so if that is something that you just cannot stand the feeling of, skip these and you'll like the other ones that I'm gonna share in a second. But in this case, I don't mind it at all because I feel like it allows them to just last longer. Like they're gripping on my lips. And the glossy effect that I get with these is so good. They're high shine, ultra reflective, and they do smooth over lips and just make your lips look so plump and juicy. Next we have the Naturium Phyto Glow Lip Balms, which I do have in so many shades. I'm not gonna swatch every single one because I did already do that in a video I posted last year where I shared my favorite lip products in every single category. So if you wanna see full lip swatches of every shade, I will list that below. These are also very thick, but they are not sticky like the Lawless glosses. They just have more of that like soft, smooth slide. The flip side is that they don't last quite as long, but I don't mind reapplying because I love the way that they feel, and they also have that smoothing, extra glossy finish. And last but not least, my most used lip product is the Amico Lay Lip Oil in the shade Reflection. I think I'm on my 3rd or 4th tube of this at this point, which says a lot because I feel like it takes a long time for me to get through lip products because I have so many. But if I want a clear gloss, I am almost always reaching for this, unless I am reaching for my Physicians Formula Diamond Gloss. I talked about this in that drugstore favorites video, and I do think that it's absolutely amazing, but when it really comes down to it, I reach for Amico Lay more because this one is a little bit less stiff on my lips. Not that this is stiff and uncomfortable, but just like in the way that they apply and feel, there's a tiny bit more of a stiff quality to this that this one doesn't have. Instead, I feel like this isn't to the point of being melty, but does have a little bit more of that melt to where it just kind of like sinks in a tiny bit better. And it checks all of the boxes that I need when it comes to a gloss. Ultra glossy, so cushy and comfy. It does not get better than this lip oil. And with that, I can't believe I finally finished this video and filmed it and like what I just filmed. Yes! Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If there is a product you're interested in trying, let me know what that is, and you can pick that up in my description box because everything is listed and linked in order of mention for you as always. If there is a product that you love that I did not mention that you think I would love based on everything I just rambled on and on about, let me know that in the comments as well. I am always excited to try your recommendations. I feel like I find some of the best products that way, so definitely keep me posted on your favorites. But otherwise, if you did enjoy this video and would like to see more from me, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, click on that notification bell, and send my channel to a friend. Thank you so much for your support in doing those things. It really helps me out, so I appreciate it more than you know. Thank you for watching my videos. I love the freaking heck out of you guys. Make sure to stay tuned for my next one because that will be up in a few days. But until then, I hope you have a great few days.